We should be clear about what this was last night. It was about violence and criminal destruction, period. It was a busy New Year's Eve night for the Portland Police Bureau. We began our shift last night in the evening shift, 18 officers under our minimums. We were able to muster between 30 and 40 officers to respond to this riot downtown during the course of the event. The sheriff did a good job of depicting what was taking place downtown to the building and to officers. And I want to let everyone know the Portland Police Bureau is doing everything we can to do follow-up. We had officers out last night documenting damage, trying to contact business owners and businesses. That work continues this morning and into today. And we're going to do everything in our power to find those responsible and hold them accountable. We're working closely with the DA's office and our partners. We're thankful for the Federal Protective Service and MCSO for their assistance last night. And that's all I have for right now. But please know the Portland Police Bureau is going to do everything we can on our end to hold people who are engaging in this repeated, violent, senseless destruction accountable.
All right. Thank you, Chief Lavelle. I'll ask the reporters to please raise your hands now in the panel here on the computer screen, and I can call on you and let us know who your question is for and what your question is. Okay. We have one hand up right now. Let's let Pri. Can you identify yourself and your organization, please? PRI.
Yeah, hi, I'm an independent journalist. My question is for Mayor Wheeler. I understand that you are in charge of the police department, and I wanted to see if you would comment on the fact that the police officers, in the midst of a respiratory pandemic, we're using tear gas, we're using impact munitions. I know you talked about violence, and I just wanted to see what your comment was on the use of, these tear gas, impact munitions, and rubber bullets on protesters yesterday, and press as well.
Thank you, Pri, for the question. The objective, when you have a large group of individuals who are marauding through our city, engaged in acts of violence and criminal destruction, is to de-escalate and diffuse, and where appropriate and safely able to do so, make arrests of people who are engaged in that criminal destruction and hold them accountable. And I will defer to law enforcement in terms of the actual deployment and use and tactics behind those tools. But when I heard about what was taking place last night, I gave a clear direction to use whatever means were necessary to quickly and safely de-escalate the situation and hold those who are engaged in criminal misconduct accountable.
Okay, next, Mike Benner, your hand is raised, KGW. You're next.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. This is Mike Benner from KGW. This question is directed at the mayor and maybe even Chief Lavelle. It appears that we had seen a break kind of in the nightly demonstrations, and then obviously we've seen action the last two nights. Are you guys fearful that things are going to ramp up again like we saw for however many consecutive nights, over the course of the summer?
Yeah, that is a concern for us. We're monitoring closely when we can get information about events that are taking place that might lead to violence and destruction downtown. Sometimes we do know about these events slightly in advance, sometimes we do not. But it's definitely a concern, something that we're looking at closely on an ongoing basis. We have some dedicated resources to address those should they arise, but it really, for us, is incumbent on us to work closely with our partners. Multnomah County Sheriff's Office has been a great partner for us, and we'll continue to do that work. We're no stranger to it. We've been doing it throughout the summer. So we'll continue, and for us, it's really just making sure we can marshal the resources necessary to deal with what we come in contact with.
You have a follow-up, Mike?
Yeah, I was just curious, Chief, you mentioned resources. How are you concerned at all with your resource level, staffing, things of that nature?
Yeah, staffing is a concern for us. I mean, we're looking at, a year where we had, some of the highest numbers of shootings and homicides in the history that I can remember as a Portland police officer. And I think we have probably the lowest number of officers that I can remember during my career as well. So staffing is a constant issue. We're still really thankful for our partnership that we had, throughout the summer with OSP and MCSO. Our federal partners were there last night. And I think for us, it's really a constant. We need to make sure that we are staffed appropriately, that we're resourcing appropriately. We've recently announced a shift to some of our traffic, K9, and narcotics officers back to our patrol functions, not only so we can answer 911 calls for service in a more timely manner, but also so we could save money on overtime and the spending that we're incurring there to try to get our shifts filled. So staffing is always a concern, and especially in a time of COVID and the pandemic and strains on city budgets. I mean, it's a concern, I think, all around.
Okay, next, Hillary Borid from the Oregonian. Who's your question for?
My question is both for the mayor and Mr. Lavelle. To the mayor, you had mentioned that you would like the legislature to pass some laws that would increase the penalties for people who repeatedly vandalize property. Could you be, and then also to allow the city to do more surveillance of people who are committing these acts? Can you be more specific about the surveillance needs that you're not able to accomplish right now? And then secondly, for Chief Lavelle, how many arrests have been made at this point related to the violence last night?
So part of the reason that I would like to convene federal, state, county, and local law enforcement is to talk about some of the specific strategies that we need to be engaged in around intelligence gathering. Often what we're running into is by the time a small group of individuals has gathered and have begun their criminal destruction spree, by the time the police are actually deployed and able to respond, those who are engaged in those activities are already gone, meaning it's an after-the-fact investigative follow-up. I believe that there may be some strategies that we can engage in that are constitutional, that would enable us to get off the back foot and be more proactive in terms of being able to respond to some of these situations more quickly.
And I am aware of 3 arrests that were made last night with charges ranging from burglary to theft and riot. And I'll take this opportunity also just to ask the public if there's anyone who has any information about what took place last night. If you're a business that was targeted or vandalized and that you haven't been contacted by Portland police, please reach out to us and let us know.
Okay, next question, Allison Mechanic from K2. What is your question and who's it for?
Hi there. My question is for the mayor. It's regarding last night. It sounds like things were this sounds like this response is a bit more intense than previous responses. And I was just wondering, what's the difference between last night and then some of the other riots that we saw earlier on in 2020?
I'm not sure I'm the best person to characterize what was different. Obviously, one thing that was different was it happened on a night that's historically a celebratory night for people locally as well as nationally. It was a night when we didn't have the full deployment of resources available to us. So it was very important that we be able to rely on our partnerships. For example, our partnership with the Multnomah County Sheriff and his folks. In the absence of that, it would have been very difficult for the police to be able to contain this situation individually. But I will defer to the sheriff and to the chief of police if they want to characterize how this may have been different. From my perspective, it's cumulative. From my perspective, was more of the same types of activities we've seen. And if we want to change the dynamic here, and I'm hearing loudly and clearly from my constituents in this community, they want us to change the dynamic, then we need to be more proactive in terms of holding people accountable for these actions and being able to respond more quickly and effectively.
Thank you for the question. Again, last night's activity, I want to be really clear, wasn't about a free speech event or a demonstration. It was about criminal activity. It was focused on the Justice Center. It was focused on drawing police officers out, deputy sheriffs, and attacking them, and then attacking businesses. There wasn't anything about this that was protected or lawful, and it was reprehensible violence. We support the right of people to protest and demonstrate in our community and to do that peacefully, and last night was not that. Thank you.
Test.
Yeah, I have. Let's see, one more. Okay, so I guess my question is for Mayor Wheeler again. I think a lot of the protesters want, are protesting to defund the police, and I think one of the things that they wanted in 2020 was defunding it by at least, the police bureau by $50 million. And I was wondering if you would entertain that, and what your thoughts are, and directing that money to other services. So I was wondering what your thoughts and if you had a comment on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bree. Thank you for the question. So what I'm hearing from the BLM movement, what I'm hearing from the tens of thousands of people who gathered peacefully over the course of the last many months since the murder of George Floyd, is they want improvements in policing. They're not saying they don't want police or they don't want a public safety function. What they're saying is they want policing to be different and to acknowledge the historical racism that's built into the institution of policing. They want us to acknowledge this national reckoning around racial justice and equity and calls for common sense police reform. But personally, and this is just my opinion, that is not necessarily the same thing as wholesale reductions in budgets. I do agree with those who say we should be investing more upstream, invest more in education, invest more in family stability, invest more in housing, invest more in job training, invest more in economic opportunity and shared prosperity. I agree with all of those things, and my history in politics demonstrates that I understand and agree with those. But when I hear my police chief and I hear my county sheriff and I hear others in law enforcement saying that they're being asked to do too much right now today, and they don't have adequate resources to respond to basic public safety threats, the right answer for me isn't necessarily to jump to cutting their budget further. Now, we all know, and the chief is certainly aware of this, the city's budget is going to be pretty grim in this next fiscal year. And so the police bureau is going to have to find ways to reduce its budget regardless. It's our largest general fund bureau, so there will be reductions, but I don't want it to be haphazard. I want it to be based on fact. I want it to be based on information. I want it to be based on a thoughtful dialogue about how, if we need to reduce the budget further, and I'm afraid we do, just based on the economic reality, that we do it in a way that does not eviscerate public safety. Public safety is one of the most important things that government provides to people in a community. So from my perspective, the reason why I voted against the proposal of two of my colleagues in the last budget to reduce the police bureau by a further $18 million was I thought it was haphazard. If we want to talk about a thoughtful long-term strategy, I'm open to it. I've always been open to it. But for me, police bureau reductions do not necessarily equal an improvement in public safety.
Okay, one more question, and that goes to Steve from the PT News Network.
Hi, my name is Steve with PT News. I've have a million questions, but I'll keep it to one. It's for the chief. Earlier on in this conversation, you spoke about accountability and the consequences of actions for these groups of Antifa that are out here causing the destruction to your community and the residents there. With my show, I've actually spent a lot of time talking to residents, excuse me, and police officers within your community. And I wanted to ask a question about accountable. You're accountable for the police force, whether good or bad, the actions as the commissioner of the police force, and the consequences of actions. One of the solutions or one of the proposals that you had is you wanted to sit down these Antifa people with the business owners that they've harmed and the residents that they harmed. So I just have one question for you. When is the last time you sat down and listened to the police officers in your community to find out how your inaction has harmed them?
This is Chief Lavelle. You know, I talk to the officers in my department on a regular daily basis. We have open communication. We talk on a regular basis about our challenges, about things we can do better. And I'm always open to talking to whoever, community members, people that are police detractors, defund, whomever. I think it's important to take in information and talk with people who have different opinions than you. So I talk to a lot of people on a very regular basis, and I take in opinions and try to make the best decisions I can make based on what I hear.
All right. Thank you for that, Chief Lavelle, and thank you, everybody, for joining us today. If you have any other further questions, you can reach out to me in the mayor's office. You know how to reach me, most of you. Again, thanks for joining us. Have a happy New Year and be safe.
Well, I tried to get him to I tried to get him to answer the question. That is too bad. I tried to get him. Man, I was waiting. My heart was pumping. I had so many questions, but I went all the way to the one question that he could have helped the morale of his police department, right? He could have fixed or helped. I mean, I talk to the cops every day. I'm sure I'm going to get a bunch of text messages from Portland police officers today, unless Chief Level goes back and says, no one is allowed to talk to Steve with PT News. But that was a very easy question for him to answer, which probably would have maybe not appeased the folks with his department. But he chose not to answer it, which is a testimony to what he has chosen not to do the entire time that his city's been burning and his residents have been burning and his people have been murdered because of his inaction. You want to know the consequences of his inaction? They have the lowest police staffing that they've ever had. Chuck Lovell's, Police Chief Chuck Lovell said that. The lowest police numbers they've ever had, the highest number of murders they ever had. Their city burns every single day. And I provide the opportunity for the chief of police for the mayor, who is also the commissioner of the police department, to speak. Right? And I asked him a question, just to speak to his officers, and he declined. So if that doesn't say anything, I don't know what can. I tried. I am likely never going to get that opportunity again with them. So I didn't realize my mic was on when I was talking about it earlier, but I needed to take a jump on that. As soon as I saw that I had access to the hearing, I had to jump on it. And I really, I mean, you guys know, you watch my show. There are so many questions that I could ask this cat. So many questions. But I asked him a specific question to what I hold important, which is the police officers, and he chose not to ask it. I don't think my question was for the chief. I think my question, I asked for the mayor. What, did I say chief or did I say the mayor? Because I'm pretty sure I asked the mayor. But maybe I did. I was nervous. I was nervous. I don't know. I'm trying to see. Did I think I said my message was for the mayor. I could have been wrong. It was for the chief. Whatever. Well, they knew what I meant. They knew what I meant. They knew it was for the mayor. Whatever. It is what it is. Well, shit! I didn't mean it for the chief. The chief is a good dude. I meant the mayor. They knew I meant the mayor, too. That's why he kept looking at the mayor. I thought I said mayor, too. No, I said as mayor, you are the commissioner. That's what I said. Whatever. It doesn't matter. He knew what I was going to say, and they don't stand behind their officers. It was worth it. I'm going to go eat dinner. I'm going to end this, and then I'll pop back on. We'll see what Freedom Flashpoint is doing, and then I'll have a night show tonight. Too many ums in your question? Yeah, there was. But I'm going to replay it back here in a second. I always have too many ums in my question. But, guys, I appreciate you watching, and I will be live or whatever. I'll be out there in a little bit. I'll be back. 8 o'clock tonight. We'll see ya.